Hey everybody, welcome back to Okayest DM. I'm Dennis. I run this channel. I do all the stuff here. And today we have a couple of special guests over from Mystic Portal Emporium's channel. Who are you guys? What do you do?
Hi, my name's Jonathan. I actually go by the Eternal GM. I'm the lead mechanics and lore designer for our system we're working on.
Hi, I'm Audie. I'm involved in the playtesting. I'm also kind of the reference book, if you will, for history, technology, geology, and other potentially pertinent things.
Wonderful. Thank you both for being here. I'm excited for the conversation we've got set up for today. It's mostly just going to be about game design. Since we're both designing systems, I think we'll have a lot of overlap to talk about our experiences, what struggles we've had, what successes we've had, and just to throw some ideas off of one another. So you mentioned you are designing a system. You got a name for it?
Yes, and it technically comes in a two-part thing. It's the D20 core system, which lays out the basic mechanics and, in effect, the physics of our Mystic Portal verse. And then our first actual game module, which will be Secret Realms, which will be adding in the mystics and the mages and a few different specific worlds with more detail.
But so yeah, the name of the actual system that is going to be played is D20 core system?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what's the elevator pitch? What is this game about? Is it going for a specific vibe? Is it sort of universal? What is going to set your system apart from the other ones that already exist out there?
I would say on 3 points. One, the core system side of it is its overall, you ever wanted to switch from fantasy to cyberpunk or an old Western game, and you have to convince your whole table to learn a brand new system. With this, all you're asking them to do is look at the new weapon items and classes that are involved in this setting. You're still using the D20 core system, so it ends ever having to switch which system you're using. Second, we took major, basically gutting maneuvers of current systems and rethought them on how to really slow down the battle time. We've gotten what I'm experienced in and being 45-minute plus battles down to 5 minutes, and your long, like 2-3 hour boss battles down to under an hour. So our system so far performs as being faster than anything else I've played or experienced. And thirdly, we wanted to create versatility that went a little just bit beyond what your class and subclass can do. Our weapons have features you unlock as you train up with them. What was the other stuff we wrote down? We were real good on this one. Well, that's really the things we wrote down. So I would just say, to add to that, Audie, is there anything that stands out as being a player? Because from the game master's side, that's what stands out to me. But as a player, what really is our elevator pitch from your side?
Once you start getting down what your modifiers are and things like that, once you understand your character sheet and how everything applies, it's just plain smooth. You don't waste time having to look up references. Everything's playstyle-wise concise.
That's nice.
It flows for you. And referring to the weapons and such not in their specific part of it, if you take, for instance, swordplay, if you're modeling something on a European kind of pattern, there's such a thing as half-swording. There's using a sword for grappling. There's using a weapon as a tool. And all of these things are facilitated in this system. You don't have to say, oh, let me make up a number, let's roll for it with this. You've got the structure, the underlying strata right there. and organized in such a way that you maintain the fluidity of play.
I remember when we first talked about the core system, that I learned that you were both have experience in martial arts, and that has been baked into your system. How does that show? Can you give an example of a mechanic, or just one quick example of, what an actual real martial arts move is inside your game?
I'll let him go for the martial art move. But I have something that fundamentally also distinguishes our system, but represents this in a way that no other system does. So a katana going against plate mail is going to do what we call concussive damage, as the transfer of that goes through and can affect the brain and internal organs. But European swords were actually designed in a way to actually implement this as a mainstay type of taking out someone. So they don't have resistance to their transfer of that. So whatever damage they do hits you as concussive. Concussive damage removes stamina points. When you're out of stamina, the martials are really not able to do a lot of their extra boosted abilities. All the characters can't do excess movement besides them that are hit with this. But the martials, they're now going to be incapacitated when they run out of physical fortitude. This is their main physical defense ability. So whenever something comes at them, this plus a d20 roll is put in place. So as this gets lowered, your ability to defend, maneuver, and do accessibility goes away. When they both hit 0, you're that incapacitated person in plate mail getting beat up by staffs.
This makes it possible, if you look at the after reports of some old European battles, and in other parts of the world too, to have something happen like what happened at Agincourt, where you had knights trying to charge across muddy ground, getting barraged with arrows from the English longbows, and then upon reaching their targets, broken up and straggled out from the mud and the impacts of the arrows breaking up their formation, were beaten up, knocked down, and captured largely by the English. It was one of the big embarrassments of French arms back in the day. A lot of those knights who didn't drown in the mud from being run over by their own compatriots actually survived, because the weapons the Englishmen were using weren't really built to penetrate their armor. But the shock and the wear of being beaten down allowed them to be captured and ransomed.
So if it sounds like you're, like you mentioned earlier, like you have a very thorough set of equipment and weapons that you can choose from for this system. And it sounds like you would have to if, a katana has different effects than a longsword does. Like in pretty much every other system I've seen, those two are the same thing, but you have decided to split them out because in real life, they will do different things when you're hitting someone in different types of armor. That seems real thorough.
If you actually hold a katana like up and allow it to fall, it can cut through a piece of fruit. So in our game, we took the same number, I think it's a 6, and we said, okay, so our matching European sword is going to do a 1d6, but the katana is going to be either 2d3 or 3d2, so that has a higher chance of crit damage, cutting, so therefore making you bleed, and overall damage capacity. But the moment efficient metal armor is happening, this doesn't matter as much. This is more something that's going to help you without the armors. At the same time, it's harder to get a perfect cut with a European sword. You have to be right on the edge. Hence the 1d6, the harder chance to get a crit. But even though it deals less damage, European tools have the feature tool as well built in. You'll be able to use this as a crowbar, a chopping axe, and as a hammer in certain cases. Like
instead of
dagger,
just as a sword.
Yeah, the katana doesn't have that ability. It just does more damage. So its utility is dropped. What we wanted people to focus on is noticing that certain swords, like between a straight blade, backwards curve, and forward curve sword, there are different functionality and bonuses, also different damage rates, as well as we've added chopping as compared to slashing for axes, smashing instead of bashing for hammers. Like we said, we've added concussive, but also for bites of creatures and for damages like on a trident or bident, if it's stabbed into you and they twist it, we have determined this is rending damage. This is a different damage type. And
Interesting.
ballistic damage is its own, but it's meant to be separate from all other damage types. It will actually be a damage translate to points, where let's say the human, if it gets 1 point of ballistic damage in its head, it's dead. But let's say you're a stone ogre, this might be 6 or 7 points, and it takes 2 or 3 ballistic damage to make a point. So now you have a system that's actually can have guns take humans out one hit, but that helmet will offset it. Now you need more.
So it
what this
sounds
does
like
is-
a lot of, since you've split this out, I imagine the axe just for, mundane mechanical weapons. How long is that book? Because I think for example, the 5th edition player's handbook is 250 something. So where are you guys
It's
sitting?
actually shockingly concise.
I actually have disturbed myself on how long. Like, I think our list outs of like telling you what reactions you can take in and out of your turn, the ability dice system, describing the skills, like telling you what everything is the largest part of our rule book. Basically, here is half of the rules for how to play and combat. Everything is based off of time. So everything is going to have a time that it takes. If it has a cost, it's more than just a basic thing. It's I'm asking for some resource cost, but it still has a time. You have 3 seconds per round, or the time that's just flowing out of combat. This means that literally there's not complicated rules to if this is going to work or not. Now, Magic is done differently than it is in other systems, but that for later. The point is, most of our system is, hey, you can do whatever you want. There's not different types of actions. There's just disadvantages and advantages or natural ability that helps you succeed or fail at things. But you can decide whatever you want to do.
So going back to my original question, how long is your book?
It is, I would say that if you're talking about just the rules, we're under 100 pages.
Okay,
Easily.
that's
And that would
very
include
concise.
Entire breakdowns of the classes. Like reactions aren't just something that you do in your turn. You can do them outside of your turn as responsive strategic movement to what your opponents are doing. That you would think that's got to take a lot. And it's like, well, no. If someone calls for a reaction, the acting player pauses, they do their thing, it returns right back to them. The game master kind of helps go back and forth and pause during combat, but it's a big free form.
In large combat, the game master is almost actually a conductor.
Fair enough. But that whole description of reactions, the trigger system and everything like that took less than a page.
All right, I like it. I always like for my game, obviously, I tried to make it as short as possible and as easy to understand as possible, and the action resolution system, very simple. It sounds like you're attempting to do the same thing, but it sounds much more difficult from your standpoint because you have all of these external factors like different weapons, different damage types that the game master at least would need to know going into the system. So you would need to understand that when you twist a trident, it's going to do something different than if you just pulled it straight out.
I'm gonna have a 100-page section alone on how to game master our system and things to know about being a game master. That
Do you think
always
that's going to be a
upset me.
separate publication, or is that going to be in the same book?
Eventually it will, but in our core system, I want it right there. Someone that's like, this is it. This is the one I'm going to buy and get into tabletop. I want them to know that the players sometimes will go, what, your idea sounds great, but we're going this way. I want you to know that there's a meme joke that is hilarious. It's GM's moving castle. And it is the most brilliant piece of insight ever, because I've used this before I ever heard this. I had this epic showdown with a wizard in the mountain cave tower he erupted with his power. This became a forest elven sorcerer. This became a dwarven arcane cursed. It switched. I had lots of bad guys planned by the end of when they finally picked one. Eventually it became some thief guy from the Thieves Guild with a lot of magic equipment, but it had everything they needed to finish and tie in the stuff that they'd already done. So I'm like, come on, when you gonna do it? Game masters that aren't told about that reality will literally never know that certain things are possible. 5e book, I think, had the worst supplement of information, and until someone pointed out, no, you're looking at it like an experienced GM. Look at it like you don't know how to do this. And I went, oh my God, this is horrible. There's nothing in here really about, hey, so here's what it's actually like, not here's how to do it. And they tell you how to be a game master in 5e, but they don't tell you what it's like.
Herding cats.
Well, not even that. It's like just
it's definitely an experience that most people are going to, and I can understand why it wouldn't be put in a book, like the difference between what it's like to be a game master versus how to do it. You're reading the book so you can understand how to do it, not because you want to know what it's like in most cases. So going back to your specific system, you mentioned that you've been working on these core rules for about 6 months, but you've been designing something like this for the last 2 decades? Is that right?
Yes. So like I said, I thought I was inventing tabletop. I had no idea of its existence, and I had my awareness of mathematics, percentages, and probability to work with, and a really extensive knowledge of role-playing and video games, fantasy, different movies, and anime. So I had a lot to work with. So I originally was coming up with something that was this whole world. It was meant to be a specific system, but it was meant to be a video game. The only reason I moved to tabletop was because I'm like, if I have the percentage chance that this would work or fail, and what element resistances and all that in here to classes, that would make it a lot easier to make a video game later if we had all of this decided and they just need to program it. So that's how that happened. This was when I was still in middle school, coming out of middle school, like that in between middle school to high school rate. And so it has evolved 6 times. We have the current edition. We were play testing this. But I was like, hey, before we go through with this and keep pushing further, we can keep play testing this. There's a lot to work on. Let's finish my 5e supplement that I was going to be adding more classes, different type of mechanics, a whole extensive amount of stuff. And when I saw I think it wasn't the one D&D thing. It wasn't even the first play test. It was the second one, I think, that the moment I heard what was in it, I walked into his room and said, no, we're changing the 5e supplement into our own thing. We need to come up with our core decisional differences right now. And that was about 6 months ago. It went to a point where I'm like, no, they're basically making less and less and less of what I was doing and working on valid. And if they're going to be pushing this out, that makes a 5e supplement not as valuable if this is accepted. That's a market that's unstable, and I don't want to play with it. And then within a month after we decided that, the OGL thing happened.
Yeah.
And I had a moment of panic where I'm like, Did they just screw up so bad that my system is just going to be a pebble in the ocean of raining boulders? Because like there's so many people that are YouTubers who have been doing this for so long, supplementing 5e. It's like, well, that's what I was trying to do, and I'm going to make my own system. Every single one of these has. But then I saw certain YouTubers literally fumble with what they were doing. The guy that left literally had one YouTuber named jokingly the 4stat guy, because that's the only thing he actually remembers about me talking about the bad ideas he's doing. To basically, I'm gonna take 5e and I'm gonna gut parts of it that don't work and then not do anything to replace them. And I think that's a really bad idea. Then there's the other side of people who they started making something totally different and they failed, and they're scrambling. They don't know what to do. Look at even Mercer systems that have come out now. They're not like, maybe that one that's the mystery one, but the one that's supposed to be the D&D, like their kind of replacement. It's like, I don't know. I feel a little like it's not different in ways that are going to matter. I've said for a while, we need innovative mechanics. The OGL has done nothing but hold people to a standard. And so our main thing was getting out of that. You know, being someone
I
that
know
wasn't
that
raised with
I've
this.
seen a lot of since the OGL fiasco happened, there have been so many new games that popped up, not only just from a player's perspective of like, okay, we don't like Wizards anymore, we're going to try to branch out into new systems. Ooh, what's this Pathfinder thing? Oh, Cyberpunk, what's that? And not even just the bigger ones, even smaller ones, go on drive-through or itch and download some free stuff and just like start playing it. Especially like the shorter, easier to understand ones, just to like dip your toes in. Not only have players been doing that constantly since then, but more and more people like myself and you and 5 other YouTubers that I can name, we've started making our own systems because we realized, wait, we don't like this part about 5th edition, let's fix that, or let's just gut it. And I wouldn't say anybody necessarily is doing it wrong, as long as it's their own project or whoever they're working with agrees with what they're doing, that is going to be correct for them. They're just making a new game.
When I say wrong, I'm saying based off of your particular audience. Like, I won't name the person, but the one that's referred to as the 4stat guy, his audience halved on his viewership. And then it went lower. Even I don't even check in on it anymore. And the moment he started doing just D&D stuff, those videos shot up. Basically, his audience was saying, stop what you're doing. You might have a couple hundred people who like it. Sell it to them, but really focus on the content that got you here. And
there's a lot to be said about the YouTube algorithm. I would say that the algorithm doesn't know about the repercussions of the OGL fiasco. But true. I think a lot of people have been doing their system, whether successfully or not. That's up to them and their purview to decide whether they're going to keep doing it. Me personally, I'm amazed at how well my system is doing, how many people have fallen in love with it already. I mean, playtesting it is a blast every single time, and it sounds like you're seeing pretty much the same, at least among the people that have gotten their hands dirty inside it and managed to play test it with their rules, which is congratulations. It's an amazing feeling to see people enjoy something that you created.
My biggest hurdle to get over was when we started playtesting. I was adamantly against it until it wasn't like a toolbox fallacy. It's stuff that literally kept coming up that I had to finish mid-playing, randomly trying ideas using my GM experience until something hit. And then that's what we went with. But they were things I wanted to have first. But we started playtesting, and after every session, I just had to sit there for like 30 minutes and go like, this shouldn't be functioning this well. I had to actually stop being so humble with my shit. I was actually going to believe that it's doing as well as it is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
see
one I put.
every single playtest that I go through, like over if you just click on my live, you'll see I think I made a playlist actually, because it's not just my channel that I've been playtesting on. But after every single one of those games, once we turn off the stream, we say goodbye, we turn on the be right back, or whatever ending screen we've got, we close off the stream, send the audience somewhere else, so it's just me and the players. Every time I will ask, so what did you enjoy about the system? What do you think could be fixed? And I already myself, having a ton of notes written down, it's not just my notes that are being spat back at me. It's new stuff constantly. It happened obviously more and more in the earlier playtests of like what people enjoyed, what people didn't. But I think that sort of feedback is invaluable to someone who is designing a game, and you need to be able to say, okay, maybe this thing that I put into the game and I really, really enjoy myself, but nobody else thinks it's a good idea, maybe it's okay to just scrap it. And maybe the players are going to have some ideas that you didn't and are actually brilliant, and you can put in the game yourself.
So, like, one of them just on that. You know how all games typically, if they have stuff like backgrounds and paths and stuff like that, it's typically just got a bunch of bonuses you apply to your character sheet. Well, Audie brought up, well, what about some theme thing? I have a hunting background and I don't feel like I'm a hunter. And so I said, this has got to be the birth of something. So at first I was going, what if you have advantage for any search and hunting tracking like checks versus animals? So that way there could be the investigator or detective one that's, hey, they find people. Then you have the monster hunter one that's for monsters encounters. It turned into the system that allows me to, not arbitrarily, but based off of the environment, based off of the situation. Like you're trying to make a sniper shot, but there's some really high wind up close and the difference in wind changes. We're going to put a disadvantage 3 on that. So the difficulty is going to go up by 3 for this one action. So with his background of a hunter, anytime he's doing any searches like that, the difficulty is 2 points easier. So it's not a major change, and it says D or A, 1, 2, or 3 next to whatever it is, and you can refer back to this extra note section that's for your extra features and class stuff. You can go see what those advantages are so that you're not using it for every check like that. You can just quickly refer and go, oh, this is when I'm tracking animals or something. So now we have a thematic to mechanic connection for your sign, path, and background selections.
That actually sounds really cool, just from since I'm not using a class system in my own game, but I think the idea you have of taking your, you got your normal classes, right? And then you've got your backgrounds, which actually also give you mechanical benefits. It's starting to sound like you basically choose from 2 different lists of classes. I mean, one of them is probably going to give you more benefits, but the other one is also going to be important and give you more stuff. So, you could have your, we'll translate it into D&D language for a second. You could have a hunter that is also a wizard. You could have a hunter that is a paladin. You could have a hunter that is a ranger. Or you could have a ranger that is a thief, or a ranger that is a noble. And you get mechanical benefits from all those things.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So our main goal with this is we don't have character sheets. We got character profiles. I want you to know the character. Their sign, it's kind of an astrology thing. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. People believe it gives a bunch of benefits. So whether you do or not, it now is something that's there. So you can pick the sign of the thief or the sign of the snake, and it both give you kind of either sneaky or better like this. We don't have them all decided out, but we got the ones we're play testing with, which are really magically derived. They're just for the core system, which has marshals and technicians. So your sign adds a little bit to you. It tells you when this character was born. And the background. This is what your life was like, and it led you to your path, which is what you were on that led you to being an adventurer. So at your adventure, you can now pick your class. You have all of your options that would be there. Every time you get like jump strike, you're going to have variant options, which are going to be class modifiers. Let's say I don't want to do a jump strike. I want to focus on the fact I got a hammer. So now you pick hammer blow or mace smash or something that themes around the weapon itself instead of just fighting ability. Then you pick your subclass. In our system, it's really meant for you to stay in your class because your stat bonuses get higher the higher class level you go. Your ability die increases the more you stay in a particular grouping, but your class and your subclass, this is where we put that subclass flair into it that people get from multi-classing. If you want to be a hardcore warrior and then you want to add magic into it, you literally pick that subclass. You pick the type of magic you would go with. And now you have abilities that function off of that with per day amounts. And so you're able to add what you want. We want you to multi-subclass to get that flair you want. But we want the spine of your character, the base class, to really be a choice of your play style and your toolbox. So
I like it.
From sign to your final decision, even on weapons, because you might be a swordsman, but the difference between a straight blade, a curved blade, a forward curve, one hand, two hand, makes a significant difference in your play style as well. So by the time all selections are made, you know how this person fights, you know the traits they have. So if they're goofy, if they got butterfingers, if they're shy, if they have a mental disorder, you've got who they were, their background, what path they're on, what skills, what knowledge they have, what social ability do they have, how good is their mental, physical, and spiritual fortitude. You get to see a whole profile of them.
I like the way this is going. My system and pretty much every system I look at does the same thing, where every single thing you choose about your character, except the name, and in some cases even the name, gives you a mechanical benefit. Like, it changes how your character is played in game, what changes their fighting style, changes, even if it's not a fighting RPG, changes something about their mechanics and something on their character sheet that has a meaningful difference. And I feel like all of this is only jumping out to me because of how the 5th edition backgrounds, or whatever they're called, just don't do that. They give you a bit of starting equipment, and I guess technically they do give you two traits, not traits. That's my game. They give you stat proficiencies, and that's it. Once you choose your background, you never look at it again. You could just like say, I'm an urchin, and then go off and become a noble. You could just take the urchin background and be a noble in game, and no one would know the difference. So I think that this direction of making sure that everything has a mechanical change to a character is a good one. I enjoy it. I did it myself. I see everyone else doing it. It's a popular decision. Must be the right one, right?
Yes, I'm hoping. I only got 2 people play testing, and the biggest problem, in my opinion, as a creator, is I haven't heard a no, that's not going to work. I don't like that. I haven't heard those words, and that's the biggest worry. Is like a part of me wants to go, are y'all not talking shit because y'all just y'all don't want me to be upset because I really need y'all to?
That's what I do when I ask my playtesters for feedback. Is my first question is, What did you not like? Tell me something, just one thing. I don't care what it is. Tell me one thing that you didn't like. And I find that that's been pretty helpful so far in actually prompting that kind of feedback, because I'd be, if I was in that situation and I was playtesting something, I'd do the same thing. I'd say, this is amazing. Even if it was like not a good game at all, I would just say, this is really cool. I really enjoyed A, B, C, and D, the end. And I wouldn't give any negative feedback, because I'm a nice guy. I don't want to piss anyone off. I want you to feel good about your creation, because I know that myself included, sometimes getting too much negative feedback really sucks and just like can put a mental stress on you that you would really rather not have there. But in doses of like, yes, this is bad, but all of this is amazing. That is the kind of feedback that I try to frame my feedback questions around. Or like, you know, what did you hate about this? Now you can gush about what actually happened and what you enjoyed about it, because I know I enjoyed all of it.
And the biggest and like the most constant I hear is like, it would be cool if this. So it's been additional stuff like the advantages, disadvantages thing, as I was just talking about. But also they help build up the reaction system. I remember messaging you about it, and I feel this is one of those mechanics that's system agnostic. You just got to figure out how you apply it. And it's the reaction and trigger system. So in our game, if Audie's character tries to run across the battlefield, and there are 6 archers up there on the wall, the moment he starts running, each one of them just got a reaction strike. Now, each time they're doing this past their allotted amount of reactions, they're using up a second or 2 from their next turn. But if they hit him 3 times, he just lost a second per hit and his turn's over. Then the rest of them pummel him with arrows. It's now their turn, and you have that medieval scene where someone tries to run away and get away and they get shot down.
Yeah.
The reaction system also allows me to go, oh, someone just burst in the door. I'm going to move back around this corner. So it allows this interactive play where you have to not chase someone around, but realize, hey, if I move this way, they're going to go back in the door. Can you go back around this way? They're going to come toward you. And actually, it's building in that strategy that seems missing from most games. Where like D&D 5e, it really is just, okay, everyone's now face to face with an enemy. All right, let's start rolling attack hits for the rest of the game.
Have you ever played 3.5 by chance?
I did a long time ago, and I am very happy that goes gone, but I very much missed the higher abilities and power of monsters, where there wasn't the 5e players are meant to win no matter what, without feeling a challenge seemingly in higher levels.
It is a common gripe with 5th edition that dying is hard.
Dude, I made my friend make a level
it's
20 rogue. He killed an ancient dragon in one turn effectively.
Yeah, it is, especially at higher levels, it gets harder and harder to balance. A system that has a level up. I mean, I'm personally very much struggling with keeping higher level play balanced. We haven't even started playing at anything higher than 7, but I set the max at 10. I've been looking to get one of my next games started where we just go all in. This is a max level, and just to see how it works. There's other ways that I fix this in the system to make sure you don't get too powerful. But I feel like the system that you're creating is much closer to D&D 3.5 than 5th edition, because it sounds much more mechanically accurate, where strategy is going to matter. You know, choosing the correct weapon beforehand, making sure you get your hands on what you need before the fight starts is going to matter. Whereas, you know, a lot of the other systems, like mine included, is much more story focused, where it's okay, we can just like gloss over that, the logistics of this are crap. They don't make any sense at all, but we're telling a good story, so it's all right. I think those two audiences are usually very different. I mean, Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap because after all, they are tabletop RPGs.
Yep.
But I feel like
Right.
yours is much more leaning the mechanical accuracy to real life, which is definitely very attractive to a lot of people.
I would say that if I had to say one statement in that light, it's like picture 3.5 with a lot of the issues of over bulk, like, the milk carton of character options for one class, overproduction of stuff. Fix those problems and have it function with the smoothness and quickness that people are associate with 5e compared to 3.5. But then add our time of battle into it and the variety we add. And that's how you can expect this to play. Because so far, that's what you've kind of expressed.
Well, you mentioned the balancing at higher levels,
Mhm.
and that kind of
I cheated. I ain't even gonna lie. I'm good at math and I hate it, but I cheated. I made a character profile and said all of my monsters are going to be on this character profile. You don't know how you handle the difficulty system in battle? It's simple.
monster club.
Well, let's look at all of the levels of my players. You and Vlad, let's say that's 10. So I've got 10 levels I can work with. Now, I also have the amount of damage and health everything has. I want this to end in about 3 to 6 turns. And I need the levels to match up with the monster levels. And I'm actually creating a class build of all the monsters. So now there's your 2-step battle formula. And so far, every single time it has been balanced. He's dropped to the ground once with 0 health. But most of the time, 60 to 50% of their health goes away. It felt like a challenge. There was moments where they're like, dude, if we don't do this good, we're going to lose every time. So just mechanically, we have designed balanced battles, and it's a cheat because it's solving a formula. If everything's meant to match, whatever doesn't is the only thing that remains. Well, that's the abilities versus abilities. Same with our difficulty system. I have a level 1 to 20 showing what numbers you can roll on the D20 and say, this is very easy, difficult, very hard, whatever. I add your main modifier that you are going to use, so one of your top 4 numbers. So if I pick the middle one, add that to every number on the D20 chart, and I want this to be an actual difficult, so hard roll. I'll look at where I have hard and look at what the number is added to it, and now that's your difficulty rating. For anything but crafting. This includes 2 hit. So within those 5 sets, like our difficulty system for battles and combat all fits on one page. Crafting is its own page.
I have
So-
also cheated as well with balancing higher level stuff, but in a very different way. My cousin has a PhD in math from Berkeley, so I just ask him. And he's been a huge help. So he's definitely 100% getting that, like, a very special thanks. Thanks, Eric. You're amazing.
As a math-based character, it works.
I mean, in our system, there's a reason I created the artisan and academic class, because PCs need a class. But hey, this could be really interesting in a political or pure social styled campaign, or an investigative Cthulhu-like campaign. Maybe actually having those knowledges and skills is going to be what makes you better in this, and not your ability to cast Fireball.
There's some cases in this system where your connections and who you know in game are going to be extremely valuable in some campaigns, because however long you've been developing your character along whatever path, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to have access to everything. And having a cousin who's a mathematician could really help.
You mentioned different genres and stuff. And it sounds like
Yeah.
so far, what you've pretty much most of what we've discussed, with the exception of firearms, has been fantasy-esque. What genres have you tried so far, and how well have they meshed into your system? That's one thing that I found that I struggled with at the beginning, but eventually smoothed out after enough playtests.
So we right now, just kind of as one of the players has never gotten to finish Curse of Strahd, so we were trying to run through that one. So effectively,
Yeah.
we've gone from high fantasy to dark fantasy. They are non-magical characters in Barovia. But we plan on, like I had originally told you, the playtest module that will go out with the document is actually going to be an Old West train heist. The first dual grouping that will be released in the playtesting is our gunner. Dual grouping is a thing just to mention because some builds could not be made with just a class. So what we did was we made dual groupings to focus for that. So like you have a martial mage, that's a paladin. You have a mage mystic, which is a druid, but the gunner is a martial technician. So that will be the first one that comes with it. So you'll be able to play a gunner, and our other plan for the classes, the technicians themselves would be leader, field medic, and rogue. And we're going to have our martialist, which is hand-to-hand, combatant, which is 5e's fighter, and the archer. These will be the opening 7 classes in the playtest, mainly to show off the different realms of types of the technicians and marshals.
So all the settings that you have use those same 4 base classes?
4 base groupings. Groupings were a thing we created because it always bothered me that there were certain spells a mage should just freaking know, like detect magic. A wizard or a mage should never have to learn a spell to detect magic. It should be innate to people who know magic to be able to detect magic. So I wrote in other spells. This is our ability system. So for marshals, they're treated a little, better with the ability system because there's the martial caster divide. But each grouping has their own unique things that they can do with abilities that no matter what class you pick within that grouping, you still are within that grouping, so you have access to these abilities. So like, I think technicians are probably my favorite because you have improvise and distraction. Because if you've noticed in every movie or anything, it's always the person that's the smart person or skilled person that goes, I can be distraction. It's like, I'm not going to go face the monster. I'll stand here and go, help, hey, come get me, or whatever. But they're also the guy that's like MacGyver. They're like, man, I don't have a... Hold up, give me a second. Can you help me tear my belt apart? I can make an improvised letter handle on this pin on the end for the belt and make it the lockpick. Like they can use improvised things. So the rogue specifically can look around and find stuff using scavenge that'll let him find out, okay, this will work as a lockpick, this will work as a crowbar, and it helps fit the fantasy for these not to be a level up feature or something you get for your class, because all technicians should be able to do these things. All marshals should be able to counter attack and brace for impact against a sword and then be in a position to grapple. These are just core to the fantasy. So abilities are those list of things that all classes in the grouping should have. That allow us to go deeper into the...
say we're doing a zombie apocalypse like World War Z or Walking Dead, what would the mage group look like in that setting?
Well,
this is something that I've certainly struggled with myself. Like right now in my system, if there's no magic or no like sci-fi magic powery stuff in the system, you're just doing a modern setting with normal people and there's no supernatural powers going around, you just cut that part out of the rules. To be honest, I don't like that option very much. It just feels clunky, to be honest. And I was wondering what thoughts you might have had on it.
I came up with the Game Master solution. I sometimes wanted magic and zombies, and sometimes I just wanted guns and technology and zombies. So I have worlds like the Unkindled world, which is our world, where magic does exist, but if you are not made aware of it, you could literally hold a whole campaign and never experience it. Though if you're a part of the other side, you may see the world differently. We also have zombies as a plug-in module. You actually don't have to add them in, but it works just as simple as plugging them in. The zombie virus would be a condition. That condition would apply certain effects to your character profile, and there you go, you're a zombie. Same way for superpowers and vampirism, lycanthropy. We have the condition system specifically for things like that, being knocked prone, knocked wide open, and various other stuff that can be attached to our trigger and reaction system. But mainly, it's our out for having a easy solve to adding these things in. If I want mages to be present with magic, the only problem is magic is built in as a core function of our Mystic Portal verse. So whether you are aware of magic or not, magic is present. So it's just kind of a part of our reality. But you could have pure cyberpunk futuristic society with mechs and no magic understanding, and then go this side of the galaxy and same level technology, but very high awareness of magic, including some magical technology.
All right. One last question before we start wrapping up. And a very important question, probably the most important one, is what are your future plans for Core System?
Well, I know like all those plugin modules I had mentioned, those are going to be coming out, but I actually, with my carpentry skills and various other love of different types of what I would call tabletop gaming, which includes tabletop role-playing games, a tabletop game like What Do You Mean and What Do You Mean, a card game like Uno, trading card game like, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, and then board games. We actually have designs on the base level sitting on the back burner for some of all of these. Like right now we have a board game that's a little further along. We actually got the map mainly kind of drawn out. Rules are being established. Eventually there will be play testing. But it's taking a board game setup to make running a tabletop game adventure. You got two modes. You can have it normal, everyone's versus each other, normal board game till you get to the boss and win. Or you got the other one where you have a game master leading a party of 4 people on a long adventure where there can be leveling up, better equipment and adventures, quest cards, and all of that. So we have a lot of ideas, including the cosplay materials, actual DM screens and other stuff, because might as well use my carpentry ability. Even if my hands have taken damage, I can still do some things with it. And if I put out these designs, they can always be replicated.
That's true. Awesome. It sounds like you got a lot going on for Core System. I just want to say one more time, thank you for joining me for this. It was great to learn a little bit more about what you're working on. Where can people watching this find you?
Right now, we have only videos coming out on YouTube. We have to get our computer set up back up and going after the person with it left. But our plan is to actually eventually start streaming this once we have patent pending status, actually running a game from our system instead of, like doing Curse of Strahd. That's just been for fun. So YouTube's our main place, but we are on Twitter, Instagram, technically Guilded, and Discord, and TikTok. We are going to be getting back to making content soon. Just went through a wreck, a lot of other stuff, and lack of equipment, so having to restructure the whole process.
Takes a little bit longer to go get groceries when you don't have a functional car.
Well, I'm glad you guys are all right. I'm looking forward to the rest of the system. If you're watching this and you want to check out Mystic Portal Emporium, you should be able to click on the tag in the description or the title to head on over to their channel. Again, thank you both for joining me, and to all of you watching, remember, everything is going to be okay.